Hello and welcome back to Speak. Uh,
I love it.
oh God, I hate myself. So today's topic is screw new view? Question mark. So Crystal, this is something that you were keen to chat about.
Mhm.
So let's get into it. Why are you bothered? What is it about new view? Take me on the journey.
So this was on my hit list for a really good reason, and it's basically because of all the million different things I've ever heard safety be called, or headings or types or styles or whatever, books, safety one, safety two, safety differently, new view, old view, all that. I actually genuinely think screw the lot of it because there is only ever in my experience, and I know we're going to get into it, right? There's only two types of safety. That's it. And you can call them whatever you like. But there is safety compliance, where you are driven by the process and its adherence to the paper, or it is people safety, which means it is about safety, it's people centric, and all the other bloody stuff. Let's take like safety one, or reactive bad people, safety two, oh, process might be broken, even safety differently, like all people are the solution. They can fit into all the camps because you still need the data to be compliance driven. Are you okay? What are you measuring? You still will look at a process to see whether what you want everybody to comply with. You probably just won't be writing it with the right people. And then, differently, you might, if you're pretty good at what you want people to comply with, be out there chatting to people about how they think the process should look, right? But if you're still driven by the paper, it's just compliance, it's just safety compliance, that's it. With your watermelon stats, right? Lovely. But real safety to me is people safety. And then all of that stuff still counts. We still have to be reactive. We still have to look at what's happened and why. We still have to look at the process. And you can do that safety two and safety differently, whatever. And then, yeah, it's just, I don't feel like any of it. I think all of it's just a bit, it's ribbons. It's just ribbons around one thing, which is you're either driven by paper and policy, or you're driven by reducing impacts to people. That's it. So for me, I was like, screw new view, because I don't really think, I think it's all just marketing. And I know that you're going to have a difference in opinion and then you're holding it all in. So that's me. That's why it's my bugbear. That's why it's on the list. What are your thoughts?
Strong opinions, hold them loosely. Learning space.
Unedited, open, real learning space.
Unedited, unedited. So I remember the day you sent me the voice note about so I'm thinking we could talk about this and maybe call it Screw New View. And I was like, I think I'm gonna have a fucking stroke. I think if anybody has chatted to me about this kind of like new view, all this stuff, like I would very much fall in that camp. Um, and yes, I agree. There's many different elements to all different approaches, and they're all valid at different times, depending on what's happening and what it is that you're trying to achieve.
Yep.
Is it all just marketing? Yeah, some of it is just for flogging books, and some of the books are shit.
Yep. Agreed.
you know,
Yep.
um, some of the books are shit. But is it all just marketing? Maybe. Does that make it bad? No. And New View, the bucket of New View and all the things that sit in that, all the different kind of approaches, um, the language around it and the marketing around it really helped me. If it wasn't for New View, I wouldn't be working in safety anymore. I'd be fucking gone. I was gone. So I do yeah, I do get defensive about it because I'm like, fuck all you fuckers who are saying screw New View. And because yes, there are a lot of people who say there's nothing different about it, but it feels different to me and it makes my job more enjoyable. So
when you say, so from in the New View, so I've never even bothered to, I've seen so many different terms banded. I don't bother to Google them, look up. I won't listen to the podcast or anything about them, because for me, it boils down to those fundamentals when I'm working in an organization. Is it policy or is it people? And it drives such different behavior. I feel like the people safety is kind of what New View is about. It's like you should be focusing on, right. And so tell me, is it in your view, what does New View mean, represent? Why did it save you from bailing on the profession?
I guess for me, before I had started engaging with the content of like the books and the webinars and speaking to people who kind of move in those circles, before that it was all compliance.
Yeah.
It was only compliance safety. And there were safety professionals who were saying it was people safety, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was compliance. It was the people who were saying, oh yeah, consultation is really important. But their idea of consultation was a signature. That, it's like, oh yeah, well, we consulted them. They signed it because we fucking told them to. So I had literally very rarely experienced any genuine people safety. It just wasn't a thing. It wasn't there. And anything that was to do with people was blame, shame, retrain, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And while yes, there are safety professionals out there who are like, well, I've always done it this way and I've never needed the branding of New View. That's fucking brilliant. Like, that's great.
Yeah.
But there's not enough people like that.
Yeah.
That's and again, that's only my experience of it. I hadn't come in contact with people who were doing proper people safety. Or if they were, like, I worked with actually two of the guys who kind of trained me up on my first construction job. They were like two lads in their 50s, great crack, like kind of ex-tradesmen, always having banter, all the rest. But like, they did people safety. But when they did people safety, it was against the system. The system was not set up for them to do people safety. So they would be like, oh, like there was one of the guys, he called everyone babe and bubs. Like, it didn't matter who, like if he was talking to the senior project manager or one of the apprentices, like, oh babes, come here now, we'll have a look at this process or whatever. But he would say to me, babes, look, the system says this, but really you just got to go over here and chat. We won't just write this down over here and then go over here
and do the real.
Yeah, but it was always this thing of, we just won't tell the higher ups that this is how we do it, or we just won't, or look, okay, yeah, there was three steel fixers up on the deck and they weren't wearing their face shield. We have to re-induct them. We all know that's bullshit. So they bring them down into the induction room, close the door, have 45 minutes of the chats and the bants and the crack, and then go, here, lads, sign that and we'll tell everyone we re-inducted you, head off. So it's like, what? None of it married up.
Yeah. So
for me, New View isn't just about the people safety. It's also about interrogating the system. Like, people, there's a lot of, I think, maybe the term bad faith actors is too strong, but there's definitely people out there who want to pull down New View and be like, oh, people are the solution, are they? Well, what about the guy who does X? Or people are the solution, and oh yeah, we'll just let them decide everything. Yeah. And really kind of try to drag it down instead of understanding that it's actually, I see it as a way to really interrogate your system in a really specific way that brings people in, and just improves it with people. I have not seen that before without the terminology of New View, the community of New View. That did not exist for me before.
So New View sounds to me.
Sorry, that was a seriously long. This is meant to be your topic.
No, I absolutely love it. Right. So it feels to me really interesting, having listened back today to one of my first podcasts, and it's the one that you mentioned to me when I first joined PM, the Safety 1, 2, and Differently. My sort of conclusion to it is it's all relevant if it helps you, and it should be a buffet. We shouldn't be just, I don't know, throwing shit off a cliff, just saying, I don't like it, it's not what I believe in. So I think being purposefully provocative on this, I think, helps test what we really mean when we say New View differently. Because it sounds like when you're talking about New View, to me, it feels like it's almost the amalgamation of all of the part, as long as it's people safety and it is 1, 2, and differently, and it's all relevant, and it lets us really focus on the people, and when they get it wrong, it's then asking why. It is about interrogating the process and what is really embedded in this and why is it fundamentally wrong. And then the differently part, that bit, I mean, having worked on the tools myself and knowing the things that you write down when you are compliance driven, because you know really how to keep yourself safe, and it's nothing to do with the policy, it's on the paper. So it sounds to me like New View is the amalgamate. It's like the buffet effect. It's like all the things, as long as you are diving into testing everything, but with people in the center. It sounds like it's the amalgamation of all of the styles. Is that representative of what you see it as?
Yeah, that's what I would see it as. Yeah. Because even like you would have, like, if you take compliance safety and say, okay, this is what's written down, we've got all our paperwork, we've got all our stats, da 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 da. If the people doing the work still don't, like, if they're looking at it going, oh yeah, that's all written there, but that's not how I keep myself safe, then by virtue it's not fucking compliant. Yeah. Because it's not managing the risk. So therefore, it's all fucked.
and this is the whole thing about language, isn't it? Because you can be looking at compliance. I always say this: is it compliance to policy and paper, or are you complying with the fact that your policy says you're going to dig in for people? Is it, we will identify risk, we will identify how to mitigate it effectively, or, you know, if compliance is not a bad thing if what you're going to do is say, we absolutely will test and drill the fundamentals of the hierarchy of control every time we come across a risk. Sometimes you can't eliminate it, but how often do you see an organization just write a risk assessment and just be like, yeah, no, right, here's the controls? Have we ever gone back to basics and said, hold up, top of the hierarchy control, do we still need this process? Can we do it a different way? Can we eliminate this for people? Like, if you make the policy fabulous and really people-centric, yay, I want to comply with it, but you've come from a people safety headspace. Yep. Therefore, you're talking about having policies that are organic, they move and change. I was writing something down earlier about safety compliance and people safety, and I was like, safety compliance typically just maintains a status quo, and then people safety is ever changing, and it's so fundamental when you just like that blame and retrain. When you say out loud in a room, well, what are we going to do as a result? If you get to a company new, you've probably done this before, like, right, you know, Bob's had an accident, what are we going to do? And they go, oh, we'll just like the reinduction, we'll just reinduct. And like, okay. Holding in all of my deep breaths. How many of these incidents have we had? How often do we, in your example, reinduct? 50 times a month or whatever. Okay. Should we look at the process maybe, and maybe rewrite whatever we're fucking inducting? Because it really...
Good. Pause.
Holding water.
Pause. Crystal Danbury just dropped her first F-bomb on this podcast, I would say.
very passionate about this.
I've been waiting. I've been fucking waiting. Carry on.
Oh, so 100%. I think I can absolutely get behind a overarching term that means it's everything, it's all of it, as long as it's about a great outcome for the person doing the job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's this thing that springs to mind when we talk about compliance safety, and it's I think on every podcast I've gone on, I bang on about this book, but Paper Safe by Greg Smith.
Yeah.
He's a lawyer in Australia and he's class, and I fangirl him in a big way. But
if you're listening, send her a side book or something. Yeah.
Hi, Greg. But so in his book, anyway, he breaks down this thing about, what is like talking about paper-based systems and all the rest, which is fine. And when we say paper-based, it can also be on an iPad and still be a shit paper-based system, just to be clear.
Yep.
Putting it on an iPad does not solve your problem. And but he talks about, we'll say, for example, vehicle pre-use checklists, right? So if you have, we'll say here in the Republic of Ireland, you've got a regulation for whatever plant, and it's you must do a check on this once a week, every 7 days. A lot of companies go, well, we're going to do it more. We're going to do it every day. It's like, oh Christ, okay. If you feel the need, you just knock yourself out. Doesn't make you more compliant. It just is adding layers of shit. Anyway, let's just say you take a look at your checklist, and it's like, is this checklist any good? And people will go, but look at all the checklists we have got filled out. Yeah. It's like, all this proves is that the checklist was filled out. It doesn't prove that the machine was checked. Yeah. It doesn't prove that the machine is in good order. It proves that the checklist was filled. Yeah. And when I read that, I was like, obviously. And they're like, oh, look at all my filled checklists. It's like, there could still be wheels hanging off that fucking forklift. This doesn't mean anything. And actually, I think it was actually Graham Wales in PM Group one day. We were talking about it, and he said, does anybody ever think about how the operator who was doing his pre-use checks every morning on his own, and how he is ticking off how the brake lights are working? Tell me how he's doing that. And I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. I went to work the next day. I was like, I don't think this should be on our list anymore.
Well, do you know what? But if that's the other thing about it being, if you designed that with the person and said, right, we have to check wheels, brakes, engine, seatbelt, it's pretty, that's pretty much it. Yep. And that you're like, battery's not corroding or whatever. These couple of things, Jeff, you ride this all the time. How would you do it? Now, you probably come across the light issue straight away. And I know literally at 19 years old, when I used to see people doing forklift checks, and they would just, you also see it, don't you? If you pick up to check in the compliance mode and you see the same strike all the way down, clearly done in one go, you probably would have come across that at second 2 of designing that checklist and been like, it's probably a 2-person check, or what can you do?
But to be fair, most people go, yeah, but the checklist is done.
Yeah.
That's what's even more frustrating, is that you have people going, but it's compliant, but we are covered. Fuck me, the phrase, lads, don't ever say it to me, are we covered? I actually can't cope with it.
Yeah.
So
but also, isn't it really sick that if something were to happen, that's enough, because it is ticked. Yeah. Because and this is the thing though that drives the compliance culture and the absolute want for cast iron. And compliance is getting ready for defense, right? That's what compliance is about. And I think the really sad part that hurts my soul is compliance will get you safer, and it might to all those organizations that have got wicked compliance, it might get you out of a jam every time you roll up into court, because you'll get called up a lot. Do you want to be there in the first place? how many people have to get really hurt before you have a different conversation? Cast iron defense, well done, right? Fabulous. Compliance is absolutely fundamental to what we do, but complying to what? What are you evidencing? How good is it, the thing that you're complying to? I don't really want to get to court ever. Like if I get to court, like say in another world, I have my own organization and I had to go to court and I did something, I really hurt someone, accident or not, and the judge said, don't worry about it, your records are solid. That's not a win.
No, you're not. Like, you've already lost.
Yeah.
The fact that you're in court is like, you've lost.
You've lost. Somebody's been hurt. And I think that's the real driver for me around people's safety. And I think if that's what New View really represents, which is all the things underneath people's safety, then yay for New View, not screw New View, yay for New View. And I think exploring that, especially for the listeners as well that are getting, let's be fair, massively fatigued with all the different labels that we're putting on everything.
Like it is a head wreck.
It is a head wreck. So New View is the bucket of all of the things that are just people-centric. It's basically all the different approaches that can be applied to proper people safety. It's lush.
And just also to say, if you don't subscribe to New View or whatever,
yep,
and you think it's all bullshit, and because I have been fucking trolled on LinkedIn about this, lol, but if you don't see yourself in that New View group, and if you're one of these people who go, well, I've always done it this way, and I've always involved people, and I've always done proper consultation, and I've always involved the people, great. Yep. I'm not fucking talking about you then. When I say traditional, or when I say safety one in a negative term, if you don't identify what I'm describing, I'm not talking about you. That's literally, you don't need to be offended. Self-select out of it. Yeah. I'm talking about the people, and there are fucking loads of them, because I used to be one, who make safety worse. That's who I'm talking. If that's not you, then why are you offended?
Yeah. And fight me. I think there is a wicked podcast with you and James McPherson, where you're talking about the sorts of things you were doing in Australia, being really open about being part of the bad solution, am now part of the great solution. And I think there is back to almost that first podcast, it was like 12 minutes or something that I did. And I was just like, you don't have to be offended if you're doing it differently. If you're making a different choice, it's okay. Not everyone is supposed to identify and, I don't know, wed themselves to one type of approach. It's just we're all different. And like you say, if you're identifying that you're safety one and making a different safety two and making a different safety differently and making, but brilliant. The whole point is we explore all these different types, styles, or whatever. For me, I couldn't give a monkey's, as long as it's people safety and we are genuinely people centric. I will be really honest. I am not going to be up for any sort of conversation where people say it should only be safety differently or it should only be safe. No, I want the data. That safety one. I am not ashamed. I think I have an absolute moral obligation to look at what is going wrong, where it is, how many reports that I get, what's my most commonly reported thing, where's my underreporting. Data is also it's the data that's missing. So where do I need to work on culture and engagement? I love it. I absolutely love it. And I will never not love it. And then you've got the process part, the safety two and safety differently. When you start as the one carrying the ladder through the lake, digging up pieces of silt, and you're climbing stacks to do samples, and you're the one that's at the sharp end, and you know how that feels. I'm always going to work with the end user to say, how does this really work, pal? And how can we make this decent? And actually, how can we stop anything bad happening? Because the data shows me you have this type of accident. So I don't want that to happen to you. How do we make it better? I don't care what people call that. because it's taking care of people, and that's my purpose. And I think there is so much war, and I've seen you be trolled on LinkedIn about using the term new view, and people are like, oh, there's nothing new here. It's not meant to be new to you if you're already doing it.
Yeah.
Right. It's supposed to be a conversation to be had with somebody that is blaming, shaming, and renaming all the policies and just reiterating all of the possibilities for failure of people, right? We're not enabling anything different. So it's not supposed to be championing that we are different or saying something different. It's supposed to be having a conversation to say, if you're still being compliance driven, such fruit comes from these other ways of doing it. There's no need to get angry. I don't understand people trolling people for having an opinion on new view, old view, 1, 2. I don't think it matters what you call it. It's just, I don't. The reason I don't engage in, I mentioned earlier about I don't engage in the podcasts or the papers that are particularly about it. It's because people are so precious about the tag. And I'm just like, I'm not up for people getting really emotional because they want it to be called a specific thing. My key question is, are you making a difference in a positive way? Yeah, cool. Call it what you like.
What you like?
Are you doing it for people or are you doing it for paper? That's my only thing, right? And if you are currently doing it for paper and you're sat here thinking, oh, I feel this is scratching me in some way, I feel like I am that checklist buddy and I am proud of my piles of paper. There's nothing wrong with starting now. There's nothing wrong with starting in a month's time. There's nothing wrong with just digging in and thinking, how else can I do that? And picking up a little podcast or picking up a paper. This is for you. All the people that are already doing it, cool. Enjoy podcast, enjoy the paper, enjoy writing your stuff. But this is a friendly zone for people that are all like-minded. We should be coming together and demonstrating the difference we have made.
Yeah.
Collective, rather than, I don't know, becoming keyboard warriors on bloody LinkedIn.
Yeah. Ish. Like it's actually, and because I learn so much from LinkedIn and from engaging on there and from what people post.
Yeah.
Like I met James McPherson through LinkedIn. And I've met so many people through LinkedIn, and it has really progressed me as a professional. Yes, it's given me more of a grow for safety and all the rest. But honestly, since that kind of trolling bit, and maybe I'm a bit too sensitive about it, but I have pulled back on posting on there. I wouldn't be as, I suppose, out there in the stuff that I would post now, because I'm like, it was not nice.
And it was
also
as well.
Fuck off. And because it's a professional networking platform, I couldn't say that, but I could say it on this. If anybody who gave me those shitty fucking comments, fuck off. You go on your own fucking podcast and you put yourself out there.
I think that is absolutely the point, right? Which is, it actually takes quite a lot to put yourself out there. And it takes so little to tear someone down in a comment that you're doing probably on the bus or on the bog, right? It takes so little. Everyone does it, right? It takes so little to do that. And actually, we should be really supporting everybody going out there trying to create a world where we're looking at safety not from a compliance lens. So none of that intolerance is welcome here. Standard. This is a safe, open, learning, unedited space, and we want it to be like that because this is real, right? This is about our feelings and our emotions, and they're not supposed to be massive, crazy light bulb moments. If they are, wicked, right? But this is about us putting ourselves out there. This is about sharing our experiences, our successes, our failures. So maybe somebody doesn't have to learn from the same one, or maybe someone can learn from the success and go do it as well, or have their own version of it. But yeah, there is so much to be taken from putting yourself out. I was thinking with new view, safely differently, putting yourself out there, balled into one, it makes me think about what this is all really about, what safety is really about. And I was thinking before we came on here about the fact that people's safety typically is very outward looking. We're always looking at how somebody is doing it, how somebody is thinking of it. And we're typically asking how we can make things better, which means we're more open-minded to go to other organizations as well, maybe other institutes, and say, what are you doing? How are you doing it? And I wrote down one of my favorite things is that the NHS A&E wards brought down mortality rates because they learned from F1. In the pits, everyone has an individual job. They changed all the processes in A&E to be like, everyone has one job and we all listen until somebody's given us a full debrief. And it actually saved people's lives because everyone had a clear purpose. And it took somebody in the NHS to be people focused, right? Mm-hmm. And to say who's putting themselves out there. And F1, somebody said, oh, we've got some stuff, like you might want to come and see how we've made it safer and have less incidents and increase performance. Unless we're all putting ourselves out there, we can't make links. We can't have people approach us for how we're doing things differently. And real life-saving stuff down the line, like mortality rates in A&E coming from F1 that come from probably something else, can't happen. So it's fundamental that we talk. And for all the people that slate people and make it harder to go out there, all you're doing is limiting other organizations, other people's ability to pick something up, learn something, take something away. It's a shame. And I think that's another thing that this podcast is about for me, is about us putting our voices out there, sharing experience so people can ask the question, try something different.
And it's like, I know I just went on an absolute huge rant and screamed fuck off into the microphone, but this is a welcoming space. But like, I'm all for dialogue and conversation, but it's about how you approach it. You can absolutely, you can disagree with me, you can disagree with my approach, whatever, but like, come at it in a way that's open for discussion, not just like, no, I'm not into that. It doesn't help anyone. It's just like this ego shite. I had one guy on there telling me, well, I've been managing risk for this many years. I'm like, literally don't fucking care. Like, I do not care.
Yeah. I think the whole thing about there's nothing new about New View, it's why I wanted to get into it, because my initial reaction was, oh, another label. We keep focusing on that rather than the core, which is it for people or paper? And this is the whole thing. I knew that we would have a good discussion because you are so New View. I'd be like, well, go on then. What? Like, why is it a big deal? Why do you love it? What is important about it? And that's how these debates should go. Even online, in dialogue and in messaging, it should be like, don't really get it. What's the point? There should be a question in there. Feedback is fine if it's constructive. I think if your feedback is, this is a waste of time, that's not constructive. It means it might be a waste of your time because you already know it. But actually, the really sad thing is you're the person that I'd want to applaud. You're actually the person that I want to be like, yay, you're doing it.
Yes.
Tell me all about it.
Yeah, if you were able to achieve all these things and bring everyone on the journey, what have you been doing that so many people have not been doing? I want to know about it.
Tell.
Tell me.
Yeah.
Let's spread the fucking word.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think with only a few minutes to go on the screw new view ... question mark is, for me, I still stand by there's two focuses of safety, paper or people. And the outputs of those is a focus on real harm and making it better for the human or really good defense. But one of those makes a difference at the end, right? I don't really want to end up in court with great defense. I want to end up not in court because I've looked after people. And so I do love if New View is this banner of kind of whatever approach it takes to make the person right, then I think that's beautiful. And maybe my simplistic brain is saying new as in let's just wrap it all together and make it a buffet, as I referenced it once before. And then view, this really is about looking at it holistically and looking at it with a people lens. Then my vote on Screw New View ? Is no, I think it's valid. I think it sounds like it's the buffet that I've always advocated. And it is another label and it is another banner, but it feels like it's trying to wrap what's been quite complicated and divisive up to now.
Yeah, I would agree. And like New View or Safety 2 or Safety Different or any of that can't exist without compliance. It can't exist without a system. It cannot exist without the system.
Mm-hmm.
It just is the system good enough.
Yes.
But
and what's the system's version of success? And I think that's the thing, is what is your end goal? Is the system success that you have greens because you filled the paper out? Or is your system a success? Or we're seeing really fundamental shifts in behavior. Our observations are different. The feeling is different. The harm is different and going down. If that's your measure of success, yay to whatever you call it. I think some of the other things that I had down here, it's probably actually all been covered. One of my main points was about that hunt for excellence. And if we're people focused and we have that wide view and that wide lens on, we tend to be looking outside for inspiration and not to reinvent the wheel. And we're proud to borrow from those others that have been doing it for 20 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think interesting. So if it was it's another label, if it's people focused, then yay, fan. Call it what you like.
That's it. And you know what? If it helps you, great. If it doesn't, leave it.
Yeah. If you're getting your results anyway, then do your thing. And you know what? One of the things that I always have to kind of reiterate, and you've said it, is compliance is always going to be a fundamental requirement. You're never going to get rid of that. If you're naturally focused on compliance, and that's how you're naturally driven, then there's always going to be a role for you that's specific to that. My want would be for organizations to make sure they're layering on and bringing in the talent who can also carry that on to ensure people impacts are reduced. So yeah, amazing. Any closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts are, we're running out of time and I'm starting to panic.
Well, thank you very much for listening to this episode of Speak, and join us next time where we talk about blame
and accountability and just culture.
Ta-da.
See ya.
Bye.